I tell stories or I help other people tell stories. These could be anything from virtual reality films to documentaries to fiction features to games. But why do I tell stories? The ambition is simple: to take an idea from my head, a memory, an epiphany, and translate it to yours. Everything else is in service of this one ambition. And while I'm doing that, I make sure I do three things right. One, the content is high fidelity, that there's no loss in translation, there's nothing being lost by the time the data reaches you. Two, making sure that it's understood. I could be over here talking Cantonese and very few of you will understand. It doesn't serve the purpose. And three, making sure it's high density. Making sure I condense 5 years of research into 2 minutes of great content. And every evolution I've had in my journey has been trying to make this better and better. We moved from fiction films to virtual reality to augmented reality, and now games. What is a game? A game is fundamentally a set of rules that, in which constraint you can achieve an objective. Games can be competitive or can be cooperative. The human species, at present, conservatively, spends 300 billion hours playing games. We love playing games. But why? Why do we love playing games so much? What makes games so much fun? To answer that question, I have to ask a more primary question. What makes anything fun? We go back to a few billion years ago when life started evolving. You see, the human genome is just 4 nucleotides in various orders telling us exactly what to do. We are an algorithm that's come to life. Everything we do is because our ancestors, 100,000 years back or 1,000,000 years back, benefited from that or still benefit from that. Everything is an algorithm at play. So everything from consuming sugar to running around helps us. But once we do understand that evolutionary biology decides our behavior, what purpose could games be serving? Why do we keep playing games? To understand that, we have to understand we are not the only species that play games. Play can be found across species, across lives. Play is basically understanding that the world we live in is high stakes. That the world we live in, if you're constantly hunting or being hunted. Play takes those stakes, reduces them, makes them low stakes, and is a simulation for the world we are going to inhabit in. Play, to put in a bumper sticker, is a simulation for war. When you chase someone, or when someone chases you, you're actually preparing for the wild. When you climb, when you strategize, all you're doing is making sure that in a low-stakes, safe environment, you're preparing for tomorrow. What now does a game consist of? And how do we achieve the simulation that I'm talking about? Well, a game consists of 3 fundamental units: dexterity, strategy, and luck. Every game, from chess to Ludo, is just this: dexterity, strategy, and luck in a different combination. As a game designer, how do I harness these, and how do you benefit from me using these? Dexterity is simple. Dexterity is basically preparing for the hunt, preparing for running around, preparing for climbing a tree, preparing for that long march you have to take in a forest savanna environment to find food. Strategy, on the other hand, is more interesting. Strategy is when you condense long time units into a small time frame. And you say, okay, if I have to prepare for winter, how do I strategize my food? If I have to prepare for being attacked, where do I position my troops to make sure I don't? If I have to make my sales better in my team, how do I make sure that all the forecasts are in place? But the most exciting is luck. Luck is counterintuitive. Because imagine being at a slot machine. You put a coin in, you pull the lever. The first dial stops at 7. The second one stops at 7. There's a good chance you'll win, but then you don't. Behavioral economics says, if you put money in something and it fails, walk away. Human logic says, if you put money in something, it doesn't work, walk away. But we don't do that. What's happening is that the 2 hormones that make us happy, serotonin and dopamine, work in very different ways. Dopamine, it turns out, is not released when you're receiving the award. It is released in anticipation of the reward. So if your brain thinks you're about to win, it will put that hit of dopamine out and you're happy. So even before you have won, you are like, hey, this works for me. This is great. I'm going to keep doing this. And you put one more coin in and you pull the lever. Something very interesting happens at this moment. The dopamine rushes to your reward centers. It tells you, keep doing this again and again. And that is exactly the kind of behavior school teachers covet all of us, when we're dealing with kids, we try to do one thing. We say, why don't you stay at home and study instead of going out and play? What we don't understand is that the child who wants to go out to play on a biological level does not want to learn. They actually want to learn. But their genome, their biology, knows only one way to learn, to be out there and prepare physically. We are taking learning entirely wrong. We're telling children who want to learn, don't do it the way you want to. We're telling them that these series of steps that we have charted out in front of you, which are 8 steps removed from actual survival, are more useful to you. When I was in school and I was studying logs and calculus, I didn't know why it was being used. I didn't know what the fundamentals of that were and why it would be important to me. And I didn't do it. There was no direct effort-reward structure for me to understand why studying is important. And there's one more thing. The world we live in is infinitely complex. Everything we do, from picking our mating partners to picking which college we go to who our friends should be, has 200 variables at the very least. Now, how do we condense this information into what is important, relevant, and pertinent? That is where games come in. I can create a structure of complexity and bring it down to the core fundamental of what a student should know or what a player should know. The University of Washington, in 2009, launched a game called Fold It. Why did they do this? Protein folding is a very important part of designing medicine or designing for medicine. And protein folding is very, very resource intensive. What they did was they took all the rules of protein folding and they put it into a game. And they put it out in the world. There was a problem that they were trying to solve for 15 years. A problem on how to synthesize medicine for a particular virus. That problem, because they gamified it and because they put it out to the gamer pool at large, was solved in 10 days. I am doing something similar with politics. My team has spent half a decade understanding how a political party works. So what we did was, we said that everyone around is talking about how politicians are doing ridiculous things, how everything is reduced to whataboutery or finger pointing, and no one's talking about policy. So we took all that we had learned about policy design and about politicians, and we said, let's make our players the politicians. Let's make them understand from the politician's perspective of what they do, why they do. It's a 2-hour condensed gameplay that takes an entire political campaign and makes you feel what a politician does. From that vantage point, now you know what's in the news is all structured to make you feel a certain way, to make you vote a certain way, and how the machine actually works. I've been gamifying a lot of things since, everything from business processes to how children learn. And that I feel is the next step of storytelling. And I would urge all of you to come with me on this journey to tell more interactive, better, and experiential stories. Thank you.